Hello, everybody, once again. So today we will start with a nice repertoire based not so much on theory. This is my favorite way of thinking and of playing, and I know that this is the equally favorite way of many amateur players as well as many professional players to base our opening not on concrete play wherever it is possible. We accept concrete play only when it is strictly in our favor. In all the other occasions, we try to play with plans and ideas. That doesn't mean that the repertoire is not good. The repertoire is very good. This is one thing to say. And a second thing to say, that doesn't mean that it doesn't require knowledge. It doesn't require concrete knowledge, but it does require knowledge of where to put the pieces, yes, how to handle the position, typical motives, typical ideas. So here we go. Today, we start with the various Benoni lines. I remember about 25 maybe years ago, I was talking to some Russian grandmaster, and I asked him, what is your opinion about the Benoni? And his answer surprised me. He said, which Benoni? I thought in my mind back then that there is only one Benoni, what we call Benoni. No, there are a few versions of it. And today we will examine them all. So here we go. Wherever it is possible, wherever it is good, and wherever it is effective, we will suggest repertoire with the moves d4, c4, knight c3, and e3, wherever this is possible and good. So we start with the so-called modern Benoni. There are two ways for us in this repertoire to reach the modern Benoni. It is black who will decide, but it doesn't matter at all. One move order is this one, c5, and now I suggest the move d5. And another move order is e6. After e6, I suggest the move knight c3. Almost every time in my life I have played g3, the Catalan, but this Catalan is a very demanding opening and a very good one. This knight c3 is easier to play. That's why many people prefer it. So this is going to be our choice. And now, if black goes c5, we push d5, and again, we enter the Benoni. So let us use this move order, for example, c5. Or let's say e6, it doesn't matter. So he takes, we take, and d6. Before I continue, please tell me what I usually do, that you can hear me well and that you can see me well. Somebody please confirm. Very good, thank you so much. And we continue. Very good, thank you. So it is white to move here. The question is, which one of the lines to choose? White has several ways to choose from. And we have to decide about a good one and comparatively easy to learn. So I decided to suggest this move knight f3. Black will play g6. There are other versions like this, but it won't change much. It's just transpositions. And after g6, I suggest today's main line, bishop f4. And next move can possibly be e3. Actually, not immediately e3, but soon e3 will be played. Bishop f4 is a very logical move. It possibly the most common variation against the Benoni in our days for some years now. It makes a lot of sense because we are directly attacking black's weakness. Now, black plays here. Black has two moves, entirely different. a6, which is the move that I have been playing occasionally with black, or bishop g7. So, generally speaking, in the Benoni, let's suppose that black plays bishop g7. Let's describe a few things from a strategical point of view. Or let's say he plays a6 first, we play a4. For the moment, we are not describing theory, but typical ideas. And he plays bishop g7. Now, there is a problem for black. He doesn't have enough space for his pieces. Black would very much like, typically in the Benoni, to exchange one minor piece, but not just any minor piece. For example, exchanging the dark square bishops is in most cases in white's favor. If we imagine this position without the bishop on f4 and without the bishop on g7, this usually favors white. So ideally, black would like to get rid of this bishop and capture a knight. So for this reason, the move e3, although we cannot say it's a bad move objectively, the computer still likes this move, but it gives an additional possibility to black. Black will play bishop g4, and after bishop e2, now our plan is at some moment to play knight d2, so black will not waste any time. He will capture on f3. We will capture with a bishop. Quite often I see amateur players or even more advanced players experimenting with such moves. This is in fact a horrible move here, at least in a practical sense and in theoretical, because black anyway has a very solid defense when he castles short. There is not really any attack. Besides, the center is comparatively open, so any flank attack is doomed to fail. So we should better at least not destroy our pawn structure. We should capture with a bishop, and then after castling and queen e7 to protect d6. For example, here knight bd7, the computer does give a small advantage to white, but black practically has very comfortable and nice play, and he has one good square for all of his pieces. So a very, very important principle in the Benoni, if we want to seriously fight for an advantage, is to avoid exchanging minor pieces just like that, or gain something in return if we allow this piece exchange. So one may ask, why does black play bishop g7 here? Why doesn't he play bishop g4 and then capture the bishop? The answer is that after bishop g4, white is not pinned with e3, so he will retreat with his knight, and next move can be h3. For example, after some tactics which I very much tried to make them work as black when analyzing these positions in the past, but unfortunately they don't work. White has a big advantage after both bishop e3 and even h3. So this bishop g4 here does not work at all. For example, after knight d2, if he plays bishop here now, white will simply play h3, and look, there is no good square for this bishop on g4. In fact, it has to go back to c8. And now we will play e3 with a very good version of our variation. So we go back once again, bishop f4, a6, a4. For those who want to play very adventurous chess, there is also this move, e4, allowing b5 with total chaos. But this is not the suggestion of today, because this is not in the spirit of the lectures, which are mainly to avoid concrete theory and play with plans. That's why I don't suggest e4, but a4. So bishop g7, and now we play h3. Is this move a novelty? No, anything but that. It has been played hundreds of times because it is very nice, very easy, and common sense. So black castle short, and now we play e3. This move is clearly better than e4. We don't want to start attacking with our king stuck in the center. For many moves, white wants to stabilize his position, develop his pieces and castle, and then after the position is stabilized, he may consider playing e3 to e4. As so often in chess, a move like b3 for white, the plan is later b4. A move like e3, the plan is later e4. So white plays e3, and now black has a few ways to develop his pieces. And black has a playable position. The computer doesn't like black's position. It always gives typically big advantages for white. Well, we should not be so happy about that. The position is playable. For example, black may play this move, or rook e8, or other moves as well. This move to protect this d6 pawn, and then play knight d7, because here knight d7 is not possible. So queen e7, we play a move like bishop e2, knight bd7. This is a very interesting idea, knight d2. the plan is to stop all these knight e4 ideas forever, and even some knight h5, which is not really dangerous. So we can even play knight d2 now. Black will play moves like knight e5, and we castle. So in such a situation, objectively, white has some advantage, small or bigger one. And what do we want to do? It is not completely clear yet. We will strengthen our position with moves like a5 at a good moment, maybe this move, bishop h2 or bishop g3, because we may want to push f4 at a good moment. And also moves like rook e1 and e4. From now and on, there are literally hundreds or let's say tens of possibilities for both sides. So studying concrete theory from now and on, it is not really a good idea. It would be a waste of time. It won't bring the result. Let's suppose that black plays this move. This is a common idea in order to play f5. So white has several moves. Who will suggest a strategically bad move for white, please? A strategically bad move for white, which a player who doesn't know the principles that we are describing, he may play this move. Very good, very good. A bad move strategically would be knight c4. Very good. This is a very bad move strategically because it gives black the chance to exchange one minor piece and play very actively in the center. And now black has a very good square for all of his pieces, bishop d7, and he stands very well, practically better. So this move is bad. How about this e4 move? This e4 move is, I would say, premature. Yes, it's not necessarily bad. The computer may even like it, but it is a little bit premature. So what to play here? a5 is very interesting. What should black play? Several possible moves. Rook b8, rook e8, f5, h6. Let's suppose he plays f5. A good idea will be to play this rook here to oppose our rook against black's queen, just in case black plays here and f4. Now this bishop is very useful against his queen. And now we may consider moves like knight f3, for example, or maybe bishop f1 and put a knight on e4. Yes, when tactics interfere, then strategy is not so important anymore. Yes, for example, such moves may be good from now on. Yes, this bishop is temporarily closed, but this is where the good news ends for black. Black doesn't have any other good thing about his position. So this is a way to play. If somebody is afraid of all these f5 and g5 stories, he can even start with this move, bishop here, bishop h2. And now we are, after this, we play, for example, rook e1, and if g5, before black plays f4, we can play f4 ourselves. Both sides now have some weaknesses. For example, knight g6 and threatening here, and let's say bishop d3. This knight may come here. Both sides have some weaknesses, but objectively, again, we have some advantage. This bishop on h2 is temporarily closed, but at any moment it can go out to g1 or even to g3. So even here, and of course, black has weaknesses left and right. d6 is weak, b6 square is weak, the f5 pawn is weak. So we have an easy position to play. And of course, as always, we have the computer's evaluation to support us. So here, knight b7, knight d2 is one very typical plan. Black can play knight e5, rook b8. Sometimes he plays it. He has two ways to arrange his knights, knight e5 and knight fd7. This is one way, but there is another way, knight e5 and knight, instead of here, knight e8 and knight e7. Personally, I prefer this way for black. So white will castle, and black may play this move. His plan is again to play f5, and maybe even knight c7 to go for b5. So in this nice position, white objectively has a small advantage. We may again play moves like this, rook e1, but we may also consider this move e4. e4 this time. Now the position is stabilized, and here next move can be this and f4. Next move can be rook e1, and typical ideas like a5, sometimes this rook a3, rook here, with good chances. For example, g5, sometimes after g5, yes, the most logical move is either this or this. However, you may even see this move sometimes. And knight c4, yes, his bishop is powerful, but our knight on c4 is also very good. And there are some weaknesses on the light squares. Long term, we may play here, moves like bishop g4. So this bishop takes e5, we always have this move in our mind, e4. Yes, and white has some very nice ideas. So let's go back, please. We are talking about the Benoni, which we will play with plans and ideas. Let me suggest another, the first one. The first move order is this. So we push d5, e6, knight c3. He takes it. Now we understand why knight takes d5 is a bad move, because this question is in many players' mind. Why doesn't white take with a knight here on d5? Because generally it is strategically good for black to exchange one minor piece. That's why. So c takes d5 is the move. We won't deal with this move, the so-called snake Benoni, now during this lecture, because time is more valuable than this variation. But I will mention this variation, which objectively is not good. I will mention it in the notes. So after d6, we play knight f3, g6, bishop f4, and now there are two main moves. a6, after which we play a4, and bishop g7. So we will examine these moves separately, because although they appear to be the same, no, there are some differences. So let us check first some typical plans and ideas. Let's continue with that with after a6. So here we go. Now, okay, knight f3 will not be our move order. It doesn't matter. Knight c3 will be our move order. But anyway, we get by a different move order to this position. So we are talking about the line with a6 first. The second line is bishop g7. So a6, we play a4. Most likely, our next move is going to be h3. There are some tries with knight h5. I remember I have played one or two times this move and many times in bleach, but unfortunately, it's not a good move. White will play bishop to g5, typically, and now we are aware of such ideas from the g3 Benoni, which comes from the Catalan. So bishop g5, and now black can play here. But generally speaking, white prefers to exchange the dark square bishops. So he can either capture or play this. This move might be even better. Black must play bishop f8 sooner or later. And now we take it. He takes with his king. Indeed, the king is safe. And now we can play e3 or even g3. All these moves are good. Should I play f4, e4? No, it sounds a little bit, it looks a little bit premature. We can play e3. We can also play h3 if we want to stop bishop g4. For example, here, e3, rook e8, bishop e2, and here we castle, and then knight d2 with all these typical ideas, but without the dark square bishops. And this, as I said, is usually in white's favor. We play here. Slowly we may play such moves, e3, e4, f4, or maybe even here, e4 and f4. And black would rather have his bishop on g7. So here white has some nice advantage, and the game goes on. Let's go back. We are now discussing some very early alternatives, like this knight h5 move. We go bishop g5. If bishop e7, we go bishop h6. And if f6, unfortunately for black, we go bishop d2. And black has a lot of weaknesses. Another interesting move is maybe even bishop h4, but this is the best move. For example, here, and now black will be forced, because he has played f6, he will be forced to play f5. And so a very clever move to play for white. Now we can play e4, Please be careful. This move is very strong. Now, these ideas and capturing bishop e2 and capturing here, they do not work at all for black with this knight on h5. So e4 is very good for white with a nice advantage, but also g3 is very nice, a very deep idea, which somebody who knows the g3 Benoni will understand. Because why do I put this bishop on a closed diagonal? Because black will soon be forced to play f5, and in that case we will play knight g5 and knight e6. So here knight g5, and this knight will go to e6 very soon, and our bishop from g2 will be very open. So this is the way to play against an early knight h5 move. I remember many years ago, the Encyclopedia of Chess Opening would suggest this knight h5 as an interesting move, and I remember I was intending to play this as black, but unfortunately it's not good. So this is our starting position. a6 is the most common move, but also here bishop g7. For the moment we are studying this a6. a4, now bishop g7. This is a different story, as we will see. Once again, if bishop g4, the knight is not pinned, so knight d2, white is better, and followed by h3. So this is the best move, and h3. Here, by mistake, I wrote this move order. It doesn't matter. This is just an example. Now h3. Actually, the move order is h3 first and then e3. And once again, black has several ways to develop his pieces. For example, with queen e7. Yes, there is also this move. The old computers would strongly suggest this move, which is completely wrong, completely meaningless. White can play simply queen c1, protecting everything, and then this move will come with a tempo. So this queen b6, we can forget about it. We have already seen this. We go bishop e2, and very typical play with castle or knight d2 first here, or even knight d2. Which one is better? Both are very good. Here, then we castle short, and we have very good play. Instead of queen e7, black may try rook e8. Now, after rook e8, the move knight e4 is becoming a real threat. Now we need to play knight d2 or bishop d3. I don't really like this move here, because after knight e4, black succeeds to successfully exchange one pair of pieces. In many other versions, black can exchange one pair of pieces, but in a very unsuccessful way. Here, he manages to do that successfully, and his position is acceptable. So instead of that, we will start with either bishop d3 or knight d2. A simple way is knight d2 first. For example, here, this is not working because of knight b6. We must always be careful about taking on d6. The simplest solution is bishop e2. This is the simplest solution. Black will go knight e5, and this is the same position as before, but instead of queen e7, black has played rook e8, which means that out of the two possible knight arrangements in this position, one is knight e5 and knight fd7, and the other one is with knight e5 and knight e8. He has lost the second one. He cannot play knight e8. So here we castle. Even this move is interesting. Bishop h2. The idea of this move order, suggested by many grandmasters, is that after knight fd7, which is generally black's idea, now he's losing a piece with f4. So we can even start with bishop h2 or just castle and allow this move, and then again white has some advantage. With typical moves, who will suggest 3 good moves, please? The answer, the question, what do I suggest after knight e8 and queen e7? The plan doesn't change. We are here. I suggest exactly the same moves. So let's clarify this. After queen e7, now bishop e2 is working, and knight e8. Yes, this is a playable position, of course. What do I suggest? Exactly the same plans. The question would be for the players, for you, what to play with white here. We can play rook e1, knight d2, all these typical moves. Yes, rook e1, knight d2, here. Then after, let's say, f5, we can move the bishop, we can play a5. After this move, we can play a5, bishop g3, bishop h2. Which other move have we mentioned, please, in this position? In these positions, not in this particular position. Another playable move, bishop f1 is playable, bishop g3 or bishop h2, a5. But look, don't forget about this move, e4. This move is also very interesting. After we have organized our position, this move is also very interesting. So this is what we suggest against all the alternatives, and we will play it with plans. Most grandmasters, when they play these positions with white, they play it with plans without much concrete theory. Yes, so we were discussing rook e8. This time knight e4 is a threat. If he goes queen e7, knight e4 is not a threat. We can play bishop e2 here. But if he goes rook e8, this knight e4 is a threat. So we may stop it with either knight d2 or even bishop d3. This is also very good. Now look at this, please. Once again, black can play knight bd7. Now, we cannot take on d6 because of queen b6 or knight b6. Generally, taking on d6, it's not so easy. So look at this, please. Here we castle. White has a very good version of another Benoni. Usually the position is with a pawn on e4. Indeed, usually the position that is like this, with a pawn on e4. Here we are with a pawn on e3, but tempi do not really matter. Maybe we are even better with a pawn on e3, and later we may push it to e4. Now look at this. Because black knows that, so let's suppose he plays queen here. Needless to say what to do. We can play rook e1, we can play bishop h2, we can play knight d2. All these moves are playable. I would have played rook e1. Generally, I like to have my rook opposed to the opponent's queen, and we go for e4. Yes, with some very nice play for white. So look now what is happening. Black plays all of a sudden knight h5. According to the computer, in this particular position, it is very good to take on d6, surprisingly. But we don't have to memorize that, because, you see, I'm telling you, because I'm a very practical player, trainer, and person, I'm telling you not to play the best move here, because you may confuse this position with some other. So in this particular position, if you remember it, this is very strong, because the computer suggests this move, and now by a magical way we are a clear exchange down, and yet white is better because he will play knight d6, e4, and he will be better. But we don't really have to remember this. This is just additional knowledge. So let's play like humans. After knight h5, we play the typical move, which is bishop h2. And now look what happens. Black plays knight e5. So in this way, black has managed to exchange some minor pieces. However, in order to do that, he has ruined the placement of his other minor pieces. So again, white is better. He takes on e5, bishop takes. So white is better for two reasons here. First of all, because we exchange the dark square bishops, and this is in white's favor. And secondly, because in order for black to carry out this principle of exchanging minor pieces, he misplaced the rest of his pieces. The bishop on c8 and the rook on a8 are still very inactive, and instead there is a random knight on h5 doing nothing at the moment, and a random rook on e5. So white has a clear advantage. Queen d2 is the move that I generally like very much when we have exchanged the dark square bishops. And our plan does not require a lot of wisdom. Our plan is to push the central pawns. Even this is a huge advantage for white. And very soon, f4, e4, all these moves are coming with a very big advantage, highlighting once again the important principle which we mentioned. These principles are helping us to take the right decisions whenever we cannot calculate until the end. It is good for white to exchange the dark square bishop. So the only question here is, how big is white's advantage? For example, I play this move, and here, and e4. So I see some concrete lines which do not matter here. They are not in the spirit of the variation. We explained the typical ideas. Yes, this is what matters the most. So this is the answer when we try to show some concrete play. The answer is that we avoid it and play with general plans and ideas. So what you need to remember, that after queen e7, you can play bishop e2. Knight e4 is not threatening anymore. But after rook e8, it is threatening. So here we prevent it with either bishop d3 or knight d2. This is our knowledge. And then typical moves. So castle short, h3. Let's continue a little bit more. Here, knight d2 or bishop d3, we said, to stop knight e4. He goes here, and bishop e2, he goes knight e5. So now we can play bishop h2, or we can just castle. Black can play knight fd7. He can play other moves as well. For example, this move, queen c7. You see, the possible moves are literally countless. So that's why we cannot focus on concrete moves, which are really infinite, but we focus on plans and ideas. Once again, our plans are the same. For example, we can play rook e1. We can play bishop h2 or even bishop g3, intending e4 and f4 at a good moment. So I suggested rook e1 and bishop g3, bishop h2. Who will suggest one or two other moves, please? Very good. So we have already very good and correct answers. One very good move is a5. Very good. Another move can be rook e1. Yes, rook e1. And you are forgetting one move which you should not forget. Which other move, please? Which other conceptual move? Which other conceptual move? This one, e4. We have stabilized our position. We have castle. If you play e4 very early, you give many additional possibilities to black. So what do we do now? First, we castle, we stabilize the position, and then we may play e4. By the way, one of the possibilities, look here, let's say I play rook e1 or queen c2. After this h6 and g5, I must always consider not only these moves, please, but also this move, bishop takes e5. In this particular position, it appears to me that it's a very good move. For example, rook takes, knight c4, he goes back, and now we may consider this move, or maybe even this move, e5. This is a gambit. I don't know if it is very risky here, and d6, for example. Yes, we will consider this move. I don't know if we will play it. Another move to consider is even this. This is risky for both sides because he may take it, and now black may have some strong squares for his pieces, but on the other hand, his king is very weak. For example, after this, who knows if there is such a move even, or let's say the bishop is coming here, very easy play. All our pieces are coming here, and black indeed has a nice square on e5 and a strong bishop on g7, but a very weak king. So these are ideas to calculate. So what we want to say is that after g5, we consider the move bishop takes e5, not necessarily play this move. So generally speaking, I don't like, because I play these positions with black as well, as I said, not with very good results. And this is expectable because they are very risky, but very tempting as well. So with my judging by my experience in the Benoni, the queen, black's queen, does not belong to c7, but to e7 in most cases. Very good. So let's check now some games in this line. We are for the moment in the Benoni with a6. Of course, here you can find literally in the database countless games. Yes, countless, like more than, I don't know, 1,500 games, for example. Yes. So just give me a minute to pick up the game that I want. It's this one. So between Rasmussen and Dox. So what is risky for black in the Benoni? The whole setup. This is a question. The answer is the whole setup by black is risky. Weaknesses, and in order to play very active chess. Yes, weaknesses. We are creating d6 is weak. Our king sometimes is weak. Not easy development. Space advantage for white. Everything is pretty much risky for black. But sometimes if things work well, black can get very good counterplay. So let's check this game. Both players have a rating of 2485 or something, close to 2500. It wasn't an easy choice to pick up games because there are so many of them. I just picked up some nice ones. And so bishop f4, two moves, bishop g7 and a6. These moves are not entirely the same, as we will see. So for the moment, we are here with a6, and we play a5. Bishop g7, h3. Don't forget to play h3. If we play e3 here or e4, then this move is very interesting. Black will play here and capture it immediately. And now he has a good version of the Benoni. So that's why we play h3. We limit his bishop, castles, and e3. So rook e8. Remember, when black plays rook e8, he's threatening knight e4. So white must play either bishop d3 or knight d2. Black played knight bd7. This is the theoretical move. How about this fight? This move has the idea to play here and exchange some pieces. Yes, but black exchanges the pieces in unfavorable ways. So can we play g4? Yes, this move might be playable, but a bit too risky for my taste. Indeed, black may play here now, and I don't like it. It's very risky. Let's better play bishop e2. And black goes knight e4 now. So we are better. For example, we may take it and castle. Yes. So we have exchanged indeed some pieces, but black has lost a lot of time. And ideally, black would prefer to exchange this bishop, in fact, and not his knight from f6. So again, we have very reasonable chances to be better. So remember, after rook e8, knight e4 is a threat, bishop d3 or knight d2. So knight bd7, bishop e2 here. White played bishop h2. The idea of this move is to stop this setup with knight fd7, because now white has f4 winning the knight, although there are some complications. After this, we can play f4. Objectively, white is better, but things are not like entirely clear here. Yes, not entirely clear. I mean, black will continue playing with a piece down. So whoever wants to avoid all complications, although objectively f4 is the best, he should castle. Very good. By the way, bishop h2. If you play here, please be careful. Knight fd7. And here, now this is working for black, because now black is threatening both bishops. Yes, this would be embarrassing. So if we are not sure, we just castle short and end of story. So knight e5, let's see how they played. Bishop h2, b6 is playable. So white castle short and bishop b7. Okay, this plan is even mentioned in some books. I don't consider it very serious. White played f4. Another very interesting and good move, we already know the move, is which one, please? Very interesting and good move. Of course, the move is e4. And this is what I would have played with white. Everything is very well protected. I am not sure I will play f4 on the next move. We don't owe this e4 move to anyone. And if black plays g5, especially now, when I see g5, we consider two ideas among other ideas. One is to play f4 when we open up both kings, but maybe black's king is even more exposed. And which other move, please? After g5, I see some weaknesses. So another move to be considered is which one? Bishop takes e5. This move should be considered. I'm not saying this move should be played for sure, but it should be considered. Rook takes, and for example, knight c4. Yes. So e4, for example, here, f5 is interesting, rook e1 is interesting. If you ask me, what is the theory here? Which move is better? We are out of book now. Already for many moves, we are out of book. So we know the typical ideas. We know which are our possible options. And each time we decide. So another playable move is also this rook e1, the very typical idea. The plan is to go here and here. Usually these plans do not, let's say, give a huge advantage with the bishop on c8, but now this bishop is misplaced. Another typical idea, as mentioned by one of the players, is this, queen c2, intending knight d1 and knight d3 to focus on f5. So I believe the best move is f4 here, or bishop takes e5, but a lot of calculation is needed. If you ask your computer, I'm almost certain that it will give some advantage to white in various different ways. Let's see how these players played. So castles, bishop f3, he's threatening d5. Who will suggest a move that should be avoided? This is what we must know. Far more important than theory. Who will suggest a move that white should avoid? The move is knight c4 or knight c3, not knight f3. Yes, so this move, for example, or knight c4 is not good. It is violating the Benoni principles. Now look, if black goes here, hoping to take on f3 and play knight e5, now here is the chance. What should white play here, please? It's white to move. Why should white play? Very good. White should correct his mistake, because this position is not so much a matter of tempi. White should play this move, knight d2. Yes, we lost to tempi, but I don't see what black can do. He will play logical moves like this, f5. Okay, we will continue with rook e1. Maybe even, which other move, please? I like it more than rook e1. Which other move? Who will help us? Which other move? Of course, that other move. Which other move? The move is e4. Please be careful. Do not allow this. If he plays here, it's game over. For example, I play queen c2. Look, he goes here, for example, and I play this. This is 2 question mark. We have just lost the game. He goes f4. Remember, this f4 is not a weakness now. This f4, if necessary, will be well protected. Yes? So here, black is all of a sudden much better. This is strategically winning for black. For example, after this, we destroyed everything. We broke all the principles. Now maybe even this is winning, or just bring the bishop back. And look how nice squares black has for all of his pieces. And then g5 is coming, g5, h5. We lost the game. And we should not blame the Benoni for it, but our bad knowledge, our lack of knowledge. However, here, black is not in time to play f4. So e4 is good. He goes here, threatening to play f4, and now we take it. Look, this is a very different story. Now, if he plays f4, we are not so worried. For example, here we can possibly play this move. And if f4, it's not the same as before. Here, we can play such moves, or let's say even rook e1. And if f4, now there is no pawn. Previously, there was a white pawn on e4. Now we play here, and we are maybe even winning. So these are the typical plans. Let's check how these players played. So bishop b7, f4. To me, this looks a bit premature. It's a matter of taste, though. And knight c4. according to the computer, even here we have a very big advantage. So knight c4 was played, and queen c7, and bishop f3. We should not waste too much time. We must play e4. Knight f8. This knight f8 is what we call, how do I characterize these moves? Who remembers? I won't say good or bad. How do I characterize this move? What is the name of this move? This is a non-standard move, non-typical move. So it has almost zero possibilities to be a good move. Or let's say after this move, black has almost zero possibilities to have a good position. This is a non-standard move. This is how it is called. We played e4, white was much better, and later he won the game. Of course, knight fd7 was played, and just look at this knight on f8. Look at this knight on f8. So now white played queen b3, but white has several other moves. He can play, for example, this e5. He can play queen d2, maybe some preparatory moves like king h1. And look at this move that I will show you now, please. Sometimes, be careful with this move, sometimes even this move is good. Look at this move. Even this one is good. I know, of course, that he will play 95, but here we will capture it. Look, for example, with a bishop, and we will capture it again. He will take with the rook, and okay, this bishop is now misplaced here. With this bishop here, imagine it here, we can go bishop c4, queen f3. Again, white is better, and it will take too much time for black to put his knight on e5. He needs to go back with the rook and then play knight d7, knight e5. So in the meanwhile, white will develop his initiative. So the new news is that f5 in such a position can also be considered. Now, let's check one or two more games. This is the game between Nybak or Nibak and Koiler. White has a rating of close to 2600, and black has a rating of close to 2300. So regardless of the move order, our move will be knight c3. We can get to this position, bishop f4. The reason that I chose this move, let's clarify something, please. First of all, our move order will be this, knight c3. And let's suppose he plays c5 now. We push d5. He plays d6. And I chose knight f3 and then bishop f4. There are other possibilities. For example, a very interesting idea for white after this move order is this system with f4 and then bishop b5 check. This direct attack. We take advantage of the fact that our knight is not on f3, and we play first f4 and later knight f3. So this system is very good, but I didn't choose this one because it has a lot of theory and it is very double-edged. It is not, doesn't fit with the spirit of these lectures. Yes? So the choices have to be easy to learn without theory, but with plans. So here a6, and soon we will study bishop g7 instead of a6 to see the differences. So here we play h3, castles, e3. After queen e7, I can allow knight e4. After rook e8, I cannot allow knight e4. So rook e8, bishop d3 or knight d2. He played knight d2. Here, bishop e2, knight e5, white castles, and knight f to d7. Once again, bishop g3 is playable, bishop h2, queen c2, rook e1, a5. In this particular position, let's clarify something, please. I won't play a5 here. It's a good move. It's not a bad move. But I see that black is not even close to threatening b5, right? We control this square very well. If he had a knight here and maybe a bishop on d7 and the knight coming here, we may consider a5. Now, a5 is not a bad move, but there are other better moves like this e4. Yes, I like this e4 move played by Nibak. e4. We stabilize the position and we push e4, queen e7. Was there any very big preparation, knowing everything concrete? And no, the answer is definitely no. So after e4, did white know that, oh, now if he goes here, I will play rook e1. If he goes here, I will play queen c2. And if he goes here, I will play a5. Did he know this together with some extra analysis? The answer is no. Zero chances. He didn't know this because he doesn't need it. It would be a waste of time. So here, he played rook e1, which makes a lot of sense. g5. And this is an interesting but risky move. For the moment, it is, of course, very early to take on e5 because black will capture with a knight, ideally. So white goes back, and look what happened now. After black played knight f8. Now, there are some interesting ideas for white. For example, this is interesting this time, in my view. And after, let's say, knight g6, to play here and capture this bishop here and just take it. And now we have exchanged some minor pieces, indeed, but I see a very weak square now at the absence of the light square bishop, and together with the move g5 played, the square is f5. I will play here and knight f5. So another interesting option for white chose this move. Yes, this move is very interesting. Always, we consider it. And white is a very strong grandmaster, and he chose to play this way. Now he played bishop g4. Let's say the computer doesn't agree so much with it, but there are other ideas, like this one, for example. Here, black cannot win a pawn, of course, because we take here. So after knight c4, maybe he will play a move like this. And now our plan was not really to take here. Our plan is maybe to play bishop g4, maybe to take this bishop. It is playable for black. It is playable. Maybe this a5, knight a4 is a better idea. So let's see what happened here in bishop g4. The computer doesn't agree. However, this grandmaster with the white pieces would beat almost everybody in this position. So queen f6, and finally white takes, and queen c2, very stable chess. He tries to play in a very slow way. Black needs to do something active. So white is defending, and he had some compensation, and later white managed to win. I think white is now better. Save, and okay. Let us check one more game. I have added a few games here. You can find hundreds of them in the database. So here, white has a rating of 2536. He's a good grandmaster, and black a rating close to 2400. So d6, knight f3, a6. I believe the easiest way now is a4. However, such moves are also interesting because flank activity with a6, b5 is not so important when we have play in the center. But for practical reasons, we may choose this a4, because here we are trying to be practical. So bishop here, we are in this a6, a4 position, e3, knight e8. This plan, yes, playable and acceptable. I have played this knight e8 myself, and I won with the black pieces, but I was also like a little bit lucky to win. So now bishop e2 or bishop d3. Knight d7, and white castles. h6. Yes, we are out of book, of course. b6 is usually the move, and for example, queen c2 now, and knight d2 with typical play. After castling, he played h6. Once again, I like this move, e4. Remember this move, please. This is my favorite move. After we stabilize the position, I want to play e4. So g5, bishop h2, and b6, several moves now, like queen c2. can I play this move? Yes, of course I can, but I would like to stop this knight e5 for some moves. Let's say to control this knight e5. So I will play a move like queen c2, for example. Black can still try this move, which is though strategically risky. For example, we can take it. And if he takes with a pawn, yes, this is interesting in order to play knight d6. But white also has some play. And of course, after knight e5, if we don't like to take, we can also play such moves like knight d2, let's say knight c7. And which move now, please? Who will suggest a move for white now? Let's see. Very good. You all found the correct move. I agree with all of you. This is the move. f4. Now with our rook on f1. So he takes it. We take with a bishop. And maybe later we may even consider taking on e5. So black has a weak king. Please have a look at this. Now we may play knight f3. Yes, we said not to exchange minor pieces, but now we have concrete ideas in our mind. For example, after taking, we want to take with the rook and start attacking. Yes, remember these principles are here to help us. They are not here to be followed blindly. So we said not to exchange pieces, yes, but the situation has changed completely. So knight f3 is very interesting here. Very good. In the end, white won the game. Now, let us please briefly check this other line. So, where are we? We are here. Let me find the right game. So, let's check. We enter this position, and after we are here, okay, no, I don't like the move order is strange. We get to the same position, but I would like to exchange to explain the move order. So let's play our regular move order. So here, knight f3, g6, here, and bishop g7. So far, we were playing a6, a4, and bishop g7. That's a different story. Now black plays here. What is the difference? Very often, black wants to continue with knight a6. His idea is knight a6. There is a concrete problem with this bishop g7 move, very well known. This check. There is, however, a lot of theory after this check. And here, black has some weaknesses, so he is forced to kind of misplace his pieces, and the theory continues. I do not suggest this way, however, because this will be very theoretical. So we have another very interesting way, and then two things may become. We will either transpose to the a6 move order, or black will try knight a6, and then we will see what to do. In other words, after bishop g7, which move is my proposal, please? Not queen a4 check, but which move? Who will help us? The typical move. The move is h3. Very good. Now, black castles, and we play e3. So if black here plays normal moves like h6 or rook e8, we will soon transpose. But black has this interesting possibility, knight a6. And now this is very well known to theory. Maybe not very well known, but let's say many players know it. White cannot play typical moves like, for example, after this, black is better immediately. Look, much better. He goes here, things are very different. We play this move, and he has b5. Black is winning here, not just better. It's -3 already. So we need to be very careful what we are doing. Bishop c4, again, not so good. He will play knight c7. So after knight a6, I suggest the move bishop takes a6. This move has some disadvantages as well. And usually this move in the Benoni is not so good. This is usually good for black because he may combine pressure on the b file. This bishop can be very active from a5 and bishop a6. And he may combine attack here with knight d7, put pressure on the queen side. However, things here are a little bit more concrete, and there is one very good move for white, we will play only this move and nothing else. Let's see the game between Esipenko and Abdusatorov, two young superstars. Let's see what happened. They reached this position with e3, and indeed, Abdusatorov played this move. So now white must take on a6, and here is a very important move. Black wants to play this, and we want to be able to simply protect with b3. So a very important move here is rook c1. The idea is to be able to play b3 without being with a rook in this diagonal, rook c1. After this, white has very good chances to be better. There are some games in the database with this move, but for example, here our play is very easy. We play b3, yes, a5, we castle. Anyway, we are going to play rook e1 very soon, so we don't really mind about such moves. We will play rook e1, and our plan is to play in the center with e4 and sometimes even e5. Let me give one example. For example, he plays this, we go e4. He goes here, and now a move to consider is this, but he may have this move, and then he may capture on e5. I believe still white is better. Let's say bishop takes e5. So here take with a rook or take with a knight. Yes, of course, there are several other ways to play this position. I can play this prophylactic move, for example. Or we can play queen d2, threatening this pawn here and forcing him to collect some weaknesses, to play here. We go back, we may even consider taking, and this is how to play for an advantage. Are we worried about this move? Maybe black will attack here. No, because in most cases we have this and we are better. So let's check what happened. You need to know pretty much after this move, and your knowledge can even stop here. Of course, I add a little bit of theory, but we need to know just this. So here and b3. We stabilize the position, we castle, he played here, logical stuff, rook e1, next move can be e4, maybe even a3, this rook will not stay here for too long. So knight h5 was played, bishop h2 typically, and here a3, and e4 is very good, white has a very big advantage. What happens if black plays f4? Look, if black plays, f4 here, then he doesn't have good control in the center. This move f4 would give black a big advantage if he had another knight and he could establish this knight on e5. But things are very different. What should white play here, please? I believe it goes without saying. We must play active moves. This is the move e5. One may claim, you see, principles quite often contradict each other. One may play, but after e5, you are opening up the position for the two bishops. Yes, but on the other hand, I am creating a passed pawn on d5 and a strong post for the knight on c6. Knight takes e5, knight c6. So which one is better? Which one is more important? This is where we will show how good players we are. I believe white is better here. And the bishop on h2 is misplaced, but of course the same goes for the knight on h5. The knight on h5 is also misplaced, very misplaced. So this is what happened, and they reached this position. 92 is interesting, and white managed to keep the material equal, and this is a strategically destroyed position for black because he has a very weak king. Here, white stabilizes the position with correct calculation, of course. Bishop g3, this move is very important to protect f2 and not to be checkmated on the last rank. And later, white stabilized and he won very fast. Let's check. I have added a few games in this collection. Let's check another good game, which is, just a second, this one between Andersen and Brodowski. This is a bleach game. So by a different move, this is for later. We are here. Let's check this game. between Alexander Lenderman and Corley Casa. So white is a very good grandmaster here with a rating of 26-24, and black has a rating of 24-02. So here you will see some games. Some players are asking for some games. You will see them in the PGN. So h3, castles, e3. Now, knight a6, bishop takes a6, b takes a6, and rook c1. Don't forget to play rook c1, because if we play this move, then after rook b8, we don't have a very good way to protect this pawn. Yes? For example, if we play here, he may play this move, intending knight e4, and we lost the initiative. So rook c1 is very important. Here, b3. Is there an alternative except for bishop takes a6? Not in my opinion. The computer suggests another move, but bishop takes a6 is by far the best. So castles, here, bishop h2. Very logical stuff. f5. White plays rook e1. At some moment, he will play e4. And black is worse. Here, what do you think white should play after rook b4, please? What do you suggest for white? Very good. a3 was played. He went back, and 92. Even e4 is very good here. Even e4, this move. Okay, and later white managed to win. By the way, I have added one other possibility. Let's have a look, which appears to be very good for black, and yet it's horrible. So we reach this position, castles, e3. So we are in the a6, a4 variation. We are waiting to see rook e8 or queen e7, all these moves. Instead, he plays this and f5 immediately. Look, f5 and f4. This doesn't work at all. We go here and f4. Please be careful. e4 would be a bad mistake. The black knight would go to d7 and later to e5. But look what is happening. White castles here. This is so counterintuitive, and yet this position is completely winning for white. Not slightly better, but completely winning. Black cannot keep his position together. For example, if he takes here and he plays such moves, look, we can even sacrifice the pawn. We don't even care that it is weak. We can even sacrifice. We can play, for example, queen d3. We can even play such a move, king h1. So he takes here, look, and knight e4 or queen d3, and white is better. I have added the best moves in this position. So f4, castling short is the best move. This is the game between Grandmaster Hizmatulin and Grandmaster Zerenbuch. So bishop h6 was played, and knight d2. Look at this amazing move. What you need to know is that black, first of all, is trying to enter the complications with a bad knight on h5 and being undeveloped. Look, this is counterintuitive, and yet white has a very powerful position. Like, for example, if black takes, we go king h1. Look, we got rid of this weakness. Sometimes the best way to defend against a weakness is to totally get rid of it. But look now, we are threatening these moves, and d6 is very weak. Of course, we are threatening to capture here. Look, black has one extra pawn somewhere on c5. He is completely undeveloped, and white will win very soon. For example, after taking, I would have taken with a knight, and this is winning automatically. Here, just take it, and queen takes h5, and this is a totally winning position for white. So castles, bishop h6, knight d2. Remember this wonderful idea. Takes, takes. This is how the game was played. Rook takes f1, knight takes f1. One may see a weakness on e3 and a strong square on e5, but of course this is just one part of the truth, yes? Because on the other hand, this knight is threatened and black is completely undeveloped, so he played here, and of course white attacks fast. he played here. There is no knight d7 because he will capture on d6. And after this, look, indeed, if we start wasting time, black will stabilize his position and he will be happy. How should white continue here, please? Now that we are ahead in development, now we must strike. So the move to consider very seriously is e5. And this is the move, the so-called principal move, the move that was played. And now bishop c4, not necessarily d6. Look, black doesn't have the time to defend. He played here. If he goes queen here, for example, I guess the move is knight g3, intending soon to play knight e4 with a huge advantage in development. And all these tactics are working for white. Instead, after bishop c4, he played queen e8. He has to lose more time. Knight g3, after some calculation, obviously, and knight g to e4 with tremendous compensation. This is just a winning position. The bishop is on d4, yes, but the black king is very weak. White is attacking fast. This d6 move is always to be expected. And here white won very soon. He did play this d6 move. A good player will play the principal move sooner or later. And knight d5. Look at this position. Black couldn't even develop his pieces. White won a very nice game. Save. Okay. Now, this is more than enough in some games and a little bit of theory in order to play against the modern Benoni. Let us now check this game this time. So we will now check the so-called Czech Benoni. So we used to call it in Greece for many years, because I have some bleach games in this line, the closed opening, we used to call it, the closed one. So d5, and instead of e6, black goes e5, knight c3, and d6, and white will play e4. So this is a playable but passive opening for black. Indeed, it is playable. And if black knows the ideas, he can use it in glitch games, maybe even sometimes in standard games. So black has two main ideas: to either develop the bishop here or to play with g6 and bishop g7. Let's suppose he plays here. As we will see, white has so many different setups. Whatever you play, for example, here and knight g2 is totally normal. All of these are giving to white a nice advantage. However, the best idea is the one with knight f3, h3, and g4, because black's main idea in this opening is to play here, g6, knight g7, and f5. So we need to know what we are doing. Bishop d3, and after this, g4. Our plan, black has two possible pawn breaks, f5 and b5. Our plan is to directly or indirectly stop both of them, and black will be left without play, and later we will break up his defenses. If he plays bishop g4 here, again, we are better after h3. He takes and we take it, and white is again better. If somebody is afraid of bishop g4, he may even start with h3. But first h3 and then knight f3. But I don't really consider it a threat. It is, of course, a playable move. Let's check what happened here. They reached this position, bishop e7. The move order is kind of unusual. Knight f3. Let's suppose that black plays here. This is a horrible move, of course. Completely horrible move. We play knight c3 here, and this is completely lost after knight e2 and knight g3. And here we can play bishop d3, or maybe even this, threatening h5, waiting for this move, and now we play bishop d3 and all these moves. So let's go to see what is happening. By transposition, we reached this move order. So h3. Black's main ideas are f5 and b5, and white is here to prevent it. So after a6, white played a4. And now knight e8, bishop g4. White could even play this, because for the moment, f5 is not a threat. This is a very bad move for black. We will take it because black is threatening to push f4. So we will definitely take it, exchange everything, and then we got this knight square for our pieces. White is again better. So he played g4, but bishop d3 is also playable. But if we play bishop d3 and he plays g6, now we need to play g4, yes, to stop his f5 idea. And what to do after that, you will see right now, because this position is again played with plans. So bishop d3, g6. And now we can develop this bishop either here or on h6. It doesn't make much difference. They are very similar. So bishop e3, for example. We could even play this move, bishop here. Knight g7, queen d2. Black cannot really play f5. We will capture and then create some threats, and we will win very fast here. So black has a solid but very passive position. He may play here. This is the move that I suggest. The plan is to play here and knight f6. You see, the only good thing about black's position is that he has easy plans. And now white can play this idea again. Look at this very nice idea. The king goes to c2, and everything is protected. Black cannot play b5. He can sacrifice this pawn, but he won't take it back. And what is our plan? To slowly, very slowly prepare f4 or h4, somehow h4 and h5. This is our plan. So let's see what happened in this game. Bishop e3, here, queen e2, and king d1, and king c2. This is pretty much the setup that you need to remember. You don't need anything else in this line. There are no surprises. Knight f6, so c4, c5, look, e5, here, e4. He goes here, knight f3 or h3, let's say h3, castles here. He plays knight d7, we develop the pieces. He plays here, g4. He plays here, a4. For example, b6, the bishop is coming here. He plays this, but there is never any b5. We play here, and after this, I can play bishop h6, or which move, please? Who remembers? Which move? Of course, we can also add this rook g1 move if we consider that he is threatening f5, and if not, we simply go king d1. He plays here. I may even add this move, rook g1. Black doesn't try to play f5. He opens up the position for us. So he must play such moves, knight f6. The king is very safe on c2. I may even play this move b3, and very slowly we will attack. If he plays such a position, this is a strategically winning position. Very slowly we bring our pieces here, and we will go for f4 or for h4 and h5. It will take time, this is for sure, but it will happen for sure. So this setup is the way to play, a very good way. There are so many ways, a very good way to play against this variation. Let me even add another game. Just a second. Let me add this one. So between two very strong grandmasters. And here we have a different setup. Instead of bishop e7, black played here. Of course, it is very naive to think that, wow, black will play bishop g7, castle short like a king's Indian. He managed to play c5 and block our play on the queen side, and then he will play f5 and he will win. This has nothing to do with reality because white will not castle short. So white will play this move, for example, a very interesting move, and after this, he played h4. This is a very deep move, h4. White has a big advantage. Look, he wants to play h5 and gain space. The idea with h5 is not to give checkmate. Maybe we even play h6 later. The idea is to gain space. So black played h5, which makes sense. But now, when you play h5, you cannot play f5 anymore because you create a lot of weaknesses. So black is automatically left without play. White played here. He could play also knight h3 to put the knight on g5. Let's say here, he castles and knight g5. Maybe later we play f3 and g4. And black is again left without counterplay, because if he tries, for example, now we may even have g4, but let's say I play a move like this. If he tries f5, he has too many weaknesses now. Look, because he was forced to play h5. So that's the way, a very clever way to handle this position, to play h4. Another interesting move here is g4. Or let's say we are waiting for the right moment to play g4. Look, he castles. Maybe this is the moment to play g4. And now we are not really worried about his f5 move. We will capture twice, and he will have a lot of weaknesses. So this g6 is a playable option, just in case somebody doesn't know any theory. Let me show you another game here. You may find this game very strange, and there is an explanation behind that. Look at this game, knight c3. Now you will see that white's moves are very strange. I like bishop e2. He played it. Knight a6 was played, and bishop e3. Here, g4, yes, g4 makes sense, and h4 also makes sense. Black played this, and white goes h4. Black played h5 and g5. White has an advantage. If black goes here, then bishop d2 and f3, the knight will be lost. So black went back, and all of a sudden, a very strange move, b4. Is this the best move in the world? Yes, without any doubt. Absolutely no doubt. Here, takes, queen a4 check. Is this move the best possible move? Yes, without any doubt at all. And why without any doubt? I will explain why soon. And here, white played all these very strange magical moves. Why? Because in fact, white is, with the white pieces, is AlphaZero, the best computer that has ever played chess. And the computer is guessing and calculating all these moves. And it's playing with another computer, Berserk. So white has a rating of 3,589, let's say 3,600. So it calculates everything, and this is an amazing way to play. Be careful not to be accused. So this is the so-called Czech Benoni. And now, since we are talking about Benonis, let us also check this move before we place c4, c5. So we play d5. And for example, he plays here. Can we play c4 to transpose? Of course, 100%. However, there is an even better possibility. Whenever we have the chance, we play this move, knight c3. This is better than c4, with less theory and better. For example, here and e4. This setup is called Schmidt-Benoni, and it is better for white. For example, if a6, we will play a4. We may even consider this move, because playing the center is far more important than flank activity. So g6 is the main move. And now there is this move f4, but I don't really trust it. Yes, there is. It's playable, but I don't really trust it. I prefer this move, knight f3. White has a very big advantage. This is a Benoni, where black has his e7 pawn and white has his c2 pawn. Imagine with your mind e6 here, c4 somehow for white, e d5, cd5. So I remove e7 and c2. The presence of these two pawns, one pawn on c2 and one pawn on e7, is absolutely in white's favor. This opening, I tried to make it work several years ago. I tried to make it work with black. The answer is no, not even for bleach games. So, for example, he plays here. No matter what white plays, he is better. We didn't play c4 because in many cases we put our knight on c4 or even our bishop on c4. And now all you need to know is that all the moves are good and all logical moves are better for white, but this is the most accurate, distracting black's coordination. He goes here, for example, but now he's threatening a6. So we are forced to play a4. Black castles, we castle. He plays here, and now we can go everywhere with the bishop on c4, on d3, on e2. Look, even this is good. I very much like to put the bishop there. this is not a Benoni, this is a Smith Benoni. All the counterplay for black, for example, along the E file, does not exist. How about this? This will misplace the knight. Bishop here, white is much better. So generally speaking, all these openings with the pawn on E7 for too long are very bad. Can he play, for example, here? What if he plays E5? Two happy, good options. We play here, and look, yes, we can play C4, but once again, we would rather keep this C4 square for the rest of our pieces. So we play here, we play, for example, knight F3 and bishop E2, and compared to a standard position like this one, now we have this idea here and here. Very effective idea with very good play for white. I have included a couple of games in this line. So C5 is pretty much, I believe, I have said that in some lectures, that C5, according to Aliekhin, is the worst possible move for black that besides H5 or A5. So from the playable moves, this is the worst one here. There are a few games where black lost very fast after knight C3 and E6. White goes E4, and look, after this, white is winning by force. This is a very typical idea. This is already like +2. For example, here we go here, and he needs to go back. We capture everything. Or E5, a very typical reaction in other lines is this one, but here it doesn't work. We take, he takes, and we happily give this check, and he resigns. So, in fact, after D4, C5, here white is better. Black may try all sorts of move orders, but our plan remains the same. Knight C3, knight F3, a check on B5, not necessary but good. If here A4, if here again A4, castles, castles, and all these positions are better for white. One may argue, but how about this? And taking on F3, you said this is good. Indeed, this is good in a regular Benoni, where black has played, imagine again, E6, C2 to C4, E d5, C4 takes D5. Then that position is good. But here, black, let's say I play a move like this, you don't even have to know any theory. But look, black cannot do anything if you don't use your E pawn very early in the game to play E6, and E d5, or E5. You cannot do it later. Here it is very difficult for black to play E6 because all the time we will capture it. So, for example, he can play such moves. What is the theory here? Good news, zero theory. We can play this. I have included just some games. You will see that in all these games, very good players with the white pieces, every time they play something different, which is definitely not prepared from before, but only the very first moves, the first, let's say, 6, 7 moves, and then logical moves by their mind. So far, we started our repertoire with, I believe, very clever choices to avoid a lot of theory. The most important out of the Benonis is the modern Benoni, which we will counter it with this bishop f4, h3, and e3 system, which is indeed considered to be one of the very best systems for white against the Benoni. However, this clever choice after this bishop g7, knight a6 move order to enter this position and avoid some huge theoretical positions. And again, we have very good chances for some advantage. As for the so-called Czech Benoni, or this c5 first move, old Benoni, it is called old Benoni. Well, there is a reason that it's not called new Benoni, because it belongs to the past. It can be played occasionally from time to time in some games, but here are some very simple ways for white to play and gain the. So this is only the first out of the many lectures. I would like to thank you all very much for participating, and I hope you liked it.